I think the interesting thing in my experience was I wanted someone to know really badly. I wanted my parents to just figure it out. Because I was my abuser had, I think the word they use is groomed, like had groomed me into a way that I was absolutely terrified of people, like that I would be in so much trouble and that they would hate me and that I would be this horrible person. And I was really young. I was abused like between the ages of 5 and 8. And consistently. And I wanted somebody to find out. I wanted that so badly. And I thought I was dropping hints. Like I would think that I was like, I would say things that like my parents would pick up on, which now I think as a parent, like there's no way. But I think asking your child straight out, there's nothing wrong with that. And there was part of me that wished somebody had, and I think the best thing that my parents ever did was that they did teach me about how my body was mine. And when I finally had the courage to stop the abuse, because I stopped it. I made the conscious decision, like, this isn't going to happen anymore, and I'm not doing this anymore. It was because I was a little bit older, and I had a little more courage, and my parents had taught me things to say and to take care of myself. Like, I remember my mom sitting down and talking to me about, like, the special parts of my body that nobody should touch and nobody should see and things like that. And I think it did give me courage to make it stop. And I think the biggest thing is, unfortunately, it just has to happen young. Like, I was in kindergarten when it started. And, like, you have to talk to your children younger than you think you should, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying that would have made it not happen, because, but maybe it would have helped me be a little bit, I don't know. But I think one of the things that I can remember, this one experience that I thought I was telling my parents and they didn't get it. There was, in our community, my family had moved away and we were living in a new community, and apparently there was a sex offender in the area, and our bishop, our church leader said, talk to your children and make sure that, anyway. So my dad sat down and talked to me very straight up and point blank, and that was wonderful. And he said, Jen, since we moved to Provo, has anybody touched you where they shouldn't, or things like that? And I said, I remember exactly it. I said, since we moved to Provo, no. And I was trying to tell my dad, no, like I was trying so hard, and I wish he would have, which obviously, how would he have picked up on that? But I wish that he would have seen, do you know what I mean? And so I think, obviously I don't blame him, or I'm not upset with him or anything, but I kind of wish that he would have continued asking questions. And I think it's important as parents to remember, like, you are the parent, and it's okay for you to ask appropriate questions of your children. You can just ask them straight up, like, has anybody done this? Or has anybody tried to? Or, and I think, anyway. So I think that would have been awesome. But at the same time, every experience happens for, we can turn it into our good. And I think it was really, really empowering for me to be the one to come to my parents and say, I was abused. And, but I think the reason I was able to do that, though, is because I had local church leaders and other people that reminded me, not personally, but in groups, like, if you're a victim, you're a victim. Haven't done anything wrong. If anybody has touched you or done something in this way, it's not because you've done anything wrong. They've done something wrong. And I think by having people say that more than once and hearing it over and over again, it finally gave me the courage to be empowered and to take control and, say this is what happened. And so, and of course, in the recovery process and in counseling and everything, I went through my ups and downs of, this is my fault. I'm a terrible person. No one's ever going to want to marry me, that kind of thing. And so, yes, that was, but in the end, after counseling and a ton of family support, more just amazing family support, I consider myself, I don't consider myself a victim anymore. It was something that happened to me, but I guess technically I could still, but I don't consider myself a victim anymore. So, like I said, I can only speak from personal experience again. But I guess personal experience, it was me and a few other people that I know of. And I know what happened to them was the same that happened to me. But I know one thing that's really common, which I've learned, as I went through counseling and as I've gotten older and things like that, is that a lot of times with younger children, the offender will call it a game or our game. And that was what was with me. It was our game. And it would be, things would be, it would happen in private, but it would happen, I don't know how to explain it, but there were certainly other people in the house, lots of other people in the house. But yeah, I know, that's one thing, is that it's our game. And children, from what I understand, children won't usually say that out loud because they're not usually the ones that will ask for it to happen, obviously. But I think just being kind of aware of that, there were many times as a child that this person would say that in front of a lot of other people, do you want to go play our game? And I really wanted someone to say, what game? Do you know what I mean? And, or that kind of thing. Another thing that I know that I've learned and from my personal experiences, children will start showing signs that that they've been touched in inappropriate places. This is maybe a little awkward, but every little child explores their body, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But one thing that I have learned is that children who have been sexually abused will touch themselves more often. And there's nothing wrong with asking your child, especially if they're little, you're talking to them about their bodies and, saying reminding them nobody should touch you there and, that kind of thing. But yeah, as for preventing it, I think all of the research and everything that I've looked up and everything is the number one thing, the number one way to prevent it is to just be open with your kids. Just talk to your children. And like I said, there were many times that I hoped that my parents would come, ask me straight up. And my mom and dad were both fantastic about talking to me about how my body was sacred and was special, and that other people shouldn't touch me and things like that. And you can't, sometimes you just can't prevent things. But sometimes you can, by just being straight up and asking straight up questions and teaching your children from a really young age. And I don't know, as soon as they can talk, really, it's frequently family members, that's the most common. It's someone more than an acquaintance. From what I understand, it's quite frequently family members. In my case, this person was a teenager, but that doesn't, I don't think age has, but a lot of times, I mean, this is really common that people who are abused will abuse. And children that have been abused a lot of times will act things out on their friends or siblings. Not purposefully abusing, obviously, because they're children, but just like if they've been taught that it's a game, then they don't know that it's wrong. And so that's something else to watch out for. Just find out what your children are playing and how they're playing, you know. And, you know, especially with friends. So I think, you know, that's one thing to, and unfortunately it's just an uncomfortable thing, you know, and sometimes you have to face uncomfortable things head on. And so, yeah, I mean, I do know from everything that I've read and everything that I've been taught that abusers will choose people that are close to them because they trust them, right? They trust an uncle or a cousin or a, you know, anything. They would trust them more, and then the child would keep the secret more readily because they trust that person. So for me, coming to terms with the fact that this had happened to me, that I was a sexual abuse victim, and meeting it head on with people who loved me. And I think the most important thing is you don't have to tell everybody in your life that you're an abuse victim. But telling certain people, like your parents and a spouse, or, you know, people that can help you, the most amazing thing that you'll see is that they love you as much, if not more. And they will see your courage and see how wonderful and beautiful you are. And the amazing thing that you can experience is looking at yourself in the mirror and looking yourself in the eyes and saying, I'm not a victim anymore. And just remembering that what happened to you was a moment in your life. And if you choose to make it a moment in your life, it doesn't have to be your whole life. I remember times in my recovery when I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want anybody to see me because I thought all they saw when they looked at me was that I was a victim and that something bad had happened to me. And all they saw was the bad things that had happened to me. But with help and counseling, a lot of counseling and a lot of family support, I realized I wanted people to see me, and I wanted people to see me, not what had happened to me. And that's when I decided, I was 12, 13. That's when I decided that I was going to take what had happened to me and learn from it, help other people that had similar experiences, but take my dreams and focus on them, because my dreams were far more important than the bad things that had happened to me. And I started, picking myself up and looking in the mirror and saying, I'm going to be a wife and I'm going to be a mother. I'm going to be a successful historian. I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to do all these things because I can, and because this abuse is not going to hold me back from anything. And because I made that decision, and because I decided that I was not a victim anymore, I've had an incredible, happy life. And I know anybody who has been abused can have that. It's not going to happen in a day. It might not even happen in a year. For me, it took a couple of years. But it's been 18 years since I first told my parents about the abuse, and I hardly even think about it. Many, many days go by when I don't even think about it. And I think that is the most amazing thing. And I have a husband who loves me and treats me with respect and kindness, and it's because I made the decision and I asked for help in overcoming this abuse, the abuse I experienced. And I guess the important thing to remember is that the most amazing experience that I had was turning to Jesus Christ, and for me, turning to somebody that I knew loved me no matter what, and that was, of course, my Savior. And it might seem a little bit cheesy, but I know that it's true. I have really and truly understood the atonement far better than I ever could have, because I allowed Him to take the burden and allowed Him to heal me. And that is the greatest miracle of my life. Even with motherhood, and which is an incredible miracle, the greatest miracle of my life was really allowing the atonement to work and allowing Jesus Christ to love me. And whether or not you believe in Jesus Christ, or whether you just believe in, some kind of a God, allowing that faith and that trust to heal you is amazing. And when you finally are able to be healed, it will take some decision and it will take some help. But once it happens, you'll look back and you'll look at yourself and you will see a clean and happy and beautiful person. And you'll hardly even recognize the person in the mirror, because you will not see a victim anymore. You will see the victor. And I think that's the most amazing moment in your life.